Hi, my name is Julie Hoy, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Michigan School of Information. Today, I will be presenting our work titled Lettersmith, Scaffolding Professional Writing Among College Students. Employers rank the ability to write well just as high or more highly than any technical or quantitative skills. Yet writing is hard to learn because it requires a range of socio-cognitive functions to effectively plan, monitor, and review one's own writing. Research on creating more equitable approaches to instruction insists that greater transparency can reduce barriers to unwritten expectations, particularly for underserved students. In order to address the need for more readily available opportunities for professional writing, we propose an instructional approach called scaffolded annotation, which we define here. We define scaffolded annotation as an instructional approach that combines the benefits of model text and annotation, where model texts illustrate what content to include and how to organize text elements, and where annotations make visible others' interpretations of texts. We implement scaffolded annotation in a digital learning platform that we developed called Lettersmith. Lettersmith includes a list of shared annotations on the left. These items are chosen by the instructor as key items to include or consider when writing in a certain genre. On the right, students can scroll through various model texts that the instructor has annotated. This provides examples of how people carry out specific writing tasks as outlined on the left. Students are then given open space in the center to draft. They are also asked to self-annotate their own work. Through this design, our goal is not to force students to lose their personal style of writing, but to help them understand and adopt global standards of clear communication in the workplace. For example, this might include how to elaborate on personal experience or to construct manageable help requests. Lettersmith combines the benefits of model text and annotation to support the development of writing skills by facilitating learning from others. Unlike just model text, Lettersmith breaks down text into key components and shows how they are instantiated across different examples. Unlike just open annotation, Lettersmith provides a curated list of annotations to reduce cognitive load on learners. To better understand the effects of shared annotations, scaffolded annotations in Lettersmith, we asked the following research questions. What is the effect of scaffolded annotation on students' professional writing task outcomes? To what extent does scaffolded annotation influence students' professional writing? And to what extent does scaffolded annotation influence instructors' teaching of professional writing? To answer our first research question, we performed a quasi-experimental study and found that students applying scaffolded annotation in Lettersmith were more likely to include key components of professional writing. To answer our second and third research questions, we performed interviews with students and instructors to better understand their experiences with using the tool and subsequently how the features of scaffolded annotation supported their respective writing practices. First, I'll review the results from our first quasi-experiment. For this experiment, we compared two sets of students taking the same course in subsequent years. In the first year, students in a project-based course were asked to write introductory emails to their client partners. In the second year, students were asked to do the same, but were provided Lettersmith as a support tool. Both classes included students of similar demographics, which we outline in a table in the paper. Overall, 40 students produced email drafts in year 1 and 50 produced drafts in year 2. We found that students were significantly more likely to include various key components when drafting in Lettersmith. To give an example, the instructor asked students to write an email to their project client for the first time. Students who drafted their email without Lettersmith failed to state what school or class they were from and jumped right into asking for a meeting. While shorter emails are generally preferred, this is only the case if they include the necessary information needed for the receiver to respond. In this context, clients receiving student emails sometimes had little to no background or information about the project. Therefore, while the email using Lettersmith is longer, it includes all the relevant information to establish a knowledgeable connection, highlighting how context is critical to the way professional writing is taught. Next, we performed interviews with students and instructors to understand their perception of Lettersmith and how it influenced their writing experience. To answer our second research question, how does scaffolded annotation influence students' professional writing? We found that scaffolded annotation helps students get started. One student said, "When you have a blank canvas, I think students don't know where to start. If you can kind of see how someone else worded something, like how did someone ask for a meeting and how did they introduce a time, if you can read how they worded that, it's more helpful." While there are many writing tools available, most only support writing after the initial draft is created, such as using AI to determine the tone or searching for spelling and grammar mistakes. Few, few tools guide students through the process of drafting for the first time, which our prior work has found to be one of the most challenging parts of the writing process. We also found that scaffolded annotation helped support writing structure and content. Another student said, "If we didn't have Lettersmith and had these examples, we probably wouldn't have written an email similar to this. We probably would have just said, 'Hi, we'd love to meet,' and not really have the full agenda. It kind of made us have to become more prepared for the meeting." For one of the examples, it caused us to kind of look at different websites where we could find resources to analyze customer data. So it definitely made us more prepared. They described how seeing a peer's writing on Lettersmith helped them reflect on how they were performing their own specific writing tasks. These are just two examples of how scaffolded annotation influenced student writing, but we outline other themes in the paper. To answer our third research question, how does scaffolded annotation influence instructors teaching a professional writing? We found that it helped instructors improve the transparency of their writing expectations. One instructor said, "I think Lettersmith has definitely improved my approach to teaching cover letters because it forced me to really think about all these components, and defining them in really clear terms." Prior to using Lettersmith, instructors generally shared rubrics or presentations with writing expectations, but they rarely broke down example text into components. Having instructors clarify these components and provide examples improve their understanding of their own assignments while also providing clear modeling for students. Students were also asked to annotate their own writing, which helped instructors pinpoint gaps in student knowledge. For instance, one instructor said, "One of the things that I found really useful was that I could look at what students were tagging and try to kind of understand how each of them was grasping those individual concepts about writing." So, for example, I had one student who was continuously tagging what was actually the main argument of their writing as context, and so we were able to have a conversation. It really helped me get into kind of thinking on a sort of one-on-one basis with some of the students. I could look at their writing and say, all right, there is a fundamental misconception. This was something that we did not expect going into the study. Our focus was on how scaffolded annotation would help students understand model text, but we found that this practice also helped instructors understand student reasoning around writing. Overall, we are excited to find promising results on how scaffolded annotation via Lettersmith influenced student writing and also instructor practice. Our quasi-experimental results show that students were more likely to include key components of professional writing when guided by scaffolded annotation in Lettersmith. Our interview results show that students found Lettersmith useful for guiding structure, content, and tone, whereas instructors found Lettersmith useful for articulating writing task expectations, pinpointing gaps in understanding, and scaling instructional support, especially for early stage drafting. If you're interested in trying out Lettersmith, it's available for free at lettersmith.io. Thank you.